It's ironic that the aspect of natural disasters that gets reported on the most is actually the thing that we don't understand until months or even years later.
At least 2 people have now died and hundreds of buildings are destroyed as 3 fires burn out of control.
In the U.S., flooding has killed at least 25 people.
The official death toll from the devastating fires and the wildfires in Maui remains at 114.
More than 1,000 are dead.
The number of people confirmed dead has now climbed to more than 25,000.
In any reporting, the lead line is almost always about the extent of the human tragedy. But a truly accurate death count is about much more than just counting bodies, some of which you may never actually find.
Victims jumped into the ocean to escape the flames and smoke.
When we find these, our family and our friends, the remains we're finding is through a fire that melted metal.
But where the numbers can really skyrocket is when we talk about all of those people who die after any given disaster because of it, but not when it immediately hits.
Maria left so much destruction across Puerto Rico that the governor is now warning of a humanitarian crisis.
Suffering in unbearable heat without basic supplies. Much of the water undrinkable. 80% of the crops decimated.
That death count is a lot harder to tally. So how do they do it?
Five days after the storm, and there is still so much danger. These people used a downed cable to cross to safety. Their homes gone.
When Hurricane Maria, a Category 4 storm, barreled into Puerto Rico in 2017, the trail of destruction was immense. Homes obliterated, buildings gone, roads washed out, bridges crumbled, communications, clean water, even basic electricity crippled. Millions of Puerto Ricans were without power. And yet, after what seemed like one of the worst natural disasters in modern history, the official death count was 64 people.
Just how deadly was Hurricane Maria when it slammed into Puerto Rico last year? Well, perhaps 20 times more deadly than initial estimates.
Yeah, 64 didn't make any sense. So the New York Times investigated and ran this headline: official toll in Puerto Rico, 64, actual deaths, maybe 1,052. Basically what they did was compare how many people were dying in Puerto Rico after the hurricane to how many people usually die at that time of year.
You can see that actually a lot of people did die, far more than would have been expected in a normal year. And so usually when we talk about excess deaths, we're talking about those deaths that are kind of like indirectly caused by the disaster, but nonetheless are disaster related.
Counting these excess deaths is essentially a way of finding out how many people died who would not otherwise have had the disaster not happened at all. It's considered a more accurate way of gauging the impact of a disaster because it connects the dots when local doctors and coroners don't. And I'll explain what I mean there. So in Puerto Rico, the power went out, right? So someone on a respirator with no electricity to keep it going, did that guy really die of a heart attack, or did he die from the hurricane? Maybe it's both.
Hurricane Maria will go down as one of the deadliest natural disasters in U.S. history because the official toll went up.
Puerto Rico's governor just moments ago revising the death toll from Hurricane Maria up to 2,975.
In the case of Puerto Rico, a judge actually ordered death records be made public so journalists could do a proper accounting. But death certificates don't always make that easy because they're missing context. And I'll show you what I mean there, but for privacy reasons, I'll use a really famous example. So the death certificate of George Harrison of the Beatles. Metastatic non-small cell lung cancer is the cause of death. But does that tell you anything about the fact that he was a lifelong smoker? Or in the case of Elvis Presley, HCVD associated with ASHD. That's just a complicated way of saying he died of a heart attack. What does that tell you about his history of drug abuse, or his poor diet, lack of exercise, or the immense stress of his schedule?
Maui police began identifying some of the victims of the Lahaina wildfire. Dozens of bodies have already been recovered.
Say because of the fire that the roads are cut off in a region. Somebody has a heart attack and they can't make it to the hospital for emergency care, which might have saved their lives. So that's a death by myocardial infarction. And there is no way that the doctor can say, well, that if they had been able to get to medical care sooner, they would have survived.
Now, maybe you're thinking, you've got to stop counting somewhere, right? And the answer is yes, because obviously it's harder to draw a straight line from a death many decades later to a disaster unfolding right now. But this kind of accounting is still pretty useful because it tells us about who is most vulnerable, not just during a catastrophe, but after it too. And surprise, surprise, it's people who are already marginalized, who don't have the resources to recover from a disaster, who are most likely to die from it long after the worst